Caroline and Amanda, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. So hello, everyone. I am Caroline. I am a current student at Dartmouth College, and I was an intern for LookUp.Live this past summer. And today I will be talking with the amazing and lovely Amanda LaCount. And this will be followed by a Q&A for like the last portion, where all of you guys can ask questions if you want. And so I will tell you guys more about her in a bit, but first we can start us off with a short clip of Amanda describing what she's all about.
I have one thing to say. People never think someone with my body type can dance, let alone be a working professional dancer.
Yes, I'm on my, yes, I'm on my, I'm so, yes, I am so, I'm on my.
No matter how many jobs I book, they'll never take me seriously because I'm fat. Proving people wrong is my favorite hobby.
I saw so many videos and then I saw yours and I was like, oh yeah, I love her. I love everything she stands for.
Never let anyone dictate your life. If I inspire one person from this video, then all the hate I'm sure I'm gonna get will be worth it. Well, I'm hashtag breaking the stereotype and no one's gonna stop me. If you love it, do it. It's as simple as that.
It's all good. Okay. Okay. Thank you for showing that, Julie. And that was so awesome. I'm so glad you're here. Remember when I first found you on YouTube, and I'm just so excited that you are here today to talk to all of us. And I don't know how you did any of that, any of those moves where you're like on the ground, one arm, like, I don't know how you do it, but great job. Okay, so as Amanda talked about a little bit in the video, Amanda is a well-known hip hop dancer, actress, choreographer, singer, model, and influencer. And some of her most notable features include dancing with Meghan Trainor, Katy Perry, Lizzo, and Lady Gaga. And it doesn't stop there. She also just performed for the second time in Rihanna's Savage X Fenty show. And she has her own movement, hashtag breaking the stereotype, which promotes body positivity and the belief that any body can be a dancer. So awesome. Okay, so yeah. So I will just get right into my first question, and you can talk a little bit about yourself. So first, can you talk a little bit about how you got into dancing and then how it progressed into starting your movement of breaking the stereotype?
Yeah. First, hi guys. I know I didn't really say anything yet, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. But yeah, I started dancing when I was 2 years old, so I've been doing it for pretty much as long as I can remember. And I knew I loved it immediately when I tried it. I knew that it was something that I was always going to want to do. But when I really fell in love with it and I knew that I wanted to do it as a career is when I found hip hop dancing, which I found hip hop when I was maybe 6, I think. And I loved it. I was like, this is my thing. This is for me. And I just kept dancing ever since. And then as I got older, when I was around 8 or 9, I started to notice that people would treat me differently or look at me a certain way when I would walk into class and whisper about me. And I could tell that they didn't think I fit in there and that I shouldn't have been there. You know, dance isn't for someone like me. And that definitely had an effect on me. And I tell this story a lot, so if you're familiar with me, if you've heard it a lot, I'm sorry. But I even had a studio director kick me out of his studio when I was 11 or 12 years old because my body type didn't fit his vision, were his words. And a lot of things like that happened to me, and that was very traumatizing. But I think it also kind of lit a fire under my butt to prove all of them wrong and to show them that you know, like dance isn't about your appearance. And like, I was so motivated to show them that I can be successful, and I know that I'm talented and I work really hard, and I think I have proven them wrong at this point. So I think hopefully I can inspire some people to, you know, keep pursuing their passions and their dreams, and to show them that no matter what people say, that you can achieve anything. And how I started breaking the stereotype, hashtag breaking the stereotype, was really random. I was just in my car one day after I had moved to LA from Colorado, and I noticed that some of the people I was following had like hashtags they would use. And I thought that was just kind of a fun thing to use on Instagram. It really wasn't that serious to me. But I knew I wanted to come up with something that meant something to me, and that also could kind of just share my story and what my goal is. And the biggest goal of mine is to break stereotypes, not only in dance, but just also in the entertainment industry. And honestly, I feel like breaking the stereotype can be applied to all walks of life. To be honest, I don't think it just has to be the entertainment industry. And I created it more for me than anything, but people started catching on to it and could relate to it and relate to my story and how I feel and what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's just been growing ever since. And now it's such a big part of who I am, and who I am as a person, who I am as a dancer. And I'm just really grateful, and it's cool to see how far it's come. But just to end that question, it's all about inspiring people to do what they want in life, no matter what people have to say about it, and to just live their life to the fullest and to be who they are and not apologize for it, pretty much.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said like breaking the stereotype. It's you're so right. It's so like widely applicable. And I think that's like so beautiful that like it doesn't only relate to like body positivity. Like so many people can be involved in this movement. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really great. So just to like shift gears a little bit more into like social media, since that's what like LookUp is kind of all about. So although like you're certainly like using your platform for good, spreading like positive energy and great, you know, messages, social media overall can be like pretty harmful to youth mental health. So how do you think social media's beauty standards affect young girls today? And please feel free to like go off of your experiences or just like your observations in general.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to social media and just the internet as a whole. It's so easily accessible to people, and it's so easy for people to leave comments on things and to not receive any like what's the word, like punishment, kind of, you know what I mean? It can be anonymous, and I think that kind of leads people to believe that what they say like doesn't matter almost, or like it doesn't affect people as much. And I think a lot of people say things on there that they wouldn't say to people to their face. And I know it's really damaging, even myself, even though I am a pretty confident person, and of course I love myself and who I am and my appearance. I've learned to love it and all that, but it still is hard, you know, seeing on social media especially, it's constantly the same types of people getting praised for their appearance. And you know, if you're super thin and tall and tan or whatever and fit the ideal beauty standards, you can sometimes, if you see that and you see them getting praised, I feel like it's really easy to envy that. And the problem comes is, first, you shouldn't want to be anybody else or look like anyone else, because all of us are unique and individuals. And so I just want people to embrace who they are more. But it not only encourages them to want to look like them, but the problem with that is it can also very quickly turn into things like eating disorders and things like that, just because they want to receive that same love and same attention. And I just wish that people wouldn't comment on people's appearance, honestly. I think that that's a very touchy subject, just because your body is so personal to you, and it's a touchy subject, as it should be, in my opinion. And I think it's just really easy with social media as well to compare yourself to people and what you see on the internet. I think it's normal as humans to want to fit in and to feel normal, whatever that means. And there are definitely, you know, people like me who are fat or plus size, whatever you want to say, we definitely don't have the ideal body type, and that causes us to get a lot of hate or a lot of body shaming. And you should take care of yourself and you're so unhealthy, you're promoting unhealthy lifestyles. And I think social media is just, it can be a toxic place sometimes. And I wish it would just be more accepting and supportive of people, because when it is that kind of environment, social media is so beautiful. And I think a lot of great things have come from it, but there is obviously like not even up for debate. There's a lot of cons from social media. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. I kind of went on like a tangent, but
No, you do whatever you feel is best. Like that, everything you said, I'm like, yes, so true. Like, because it is. And I think it's also interesting to look at like kind of the more like subtle ways that these standards play out. Like one thing that I was thinking about when you were saying like we just shouldn't comment on other people's bodies at all, is that I remember seeing, and I still see it honestly on social media among like my peers. People will comment on like someone's post, like usually girls commenting on other girls' posts, being like, oh my God, skinny, like, oh my God, you look so skinny.
yeah.
And that always like rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like you're saying that like it's like the ideal, it's the good thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I just
yeah.
want to say something really quick,
Yeah.
because I'm sure I've said it a lot, like, so I'm not claiming that I've never said this. I'm sure I have. But I know another kind of popular thing, or it might be a little more dead now, but something that was really popular like a year or two ago was skinny legend. And even though I'm aware it's a joke, like I'm aware it's not someone's, I shouldn't take it personally, or it's not serious. I get that. But I think it just kind of shows that even though it's kind of a joke and playful, it still praises skinny.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's still kind of, not directly, but it still kind of leaves fat to be in a negative light and the opposite of that. So that's just kind of another thing that I know people say a lot. And again, I'm sure I've said that before, but we're learning and we're not saying that now. But I just think that's another example of how like even the smaller things, or things that you might not think about, still play into the fat phobia and all of that on social media.
Yeah, no, it's super easy to get caught up in like that, like whatever slang is happening, like it can have a different meaning than like what it's like literally saying. But yeah, like I totally agree. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that really quick.
Yeah.
And also like you've kind of mentioned it once or twice, like you've said like fat, plus size, like whatever you want to call it. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the word fat as a way to describe people versus plus size, because I feel like the latter is more of like the politically correct term, so.
This question is interesting because I'm glad you're asking it, but it's interesting because I think each fat person has a different opinion on it, and I think that's their opinion to have. I'm not going to tell another fat person how to describe themselves, whatever they feel comfortable. Maybe they have trauma for the word fat, or
right.
PTSD from it, or whatever it may be. So it's completely up to them what descriptor they want to use. But I know for me, like 5 or 6 years ago, you would not catch me saying I'm fat. Like that would be the last thing that would come out of my mouth, because it was a guilt thing. And I was still ashamed of my body, which obviously now looking back, I'm like, why'd you feel that way? You're so beautiful, and just like embrace who you are. And, you're stunning the way you are. But, back then I was still kind of insecure, and again, social media, of course, was playing a role, and I just wanted to fit in. And so I would never say I was fat. That word was off limits to me. If anyone said the word fat around me, it was like, ugh, triggering. But I've learned throughout like the last like 5, 6, 7 years, that fat is not a bad thing. And I think that kind of goes towards like, I think all of us are kind of raised to have some fat phobia in us, just naturally with how society impacts us and the messages they spread. I think everyone kind of it sounds weird, but everyone kind of like grows up with some fat phobia in them. And I think as fat people, it even takes us a second to reroute that and to like rewire our brains to be like, oh, fat isn't bad. You know what I mean? So for me, it's just a descriptor. It's like, oh, I'm pale. It's like I'm not like offended by that. I'm not like, oh, I'm pale. It's just, oh, I am fat. That's what it is. And I'm proud of that. I'm happy with it. I'm satisfied with that. So I think it definitely depends on the person, but for me, it's almost kind of a thing where it's like, I want to reclaim it for myself. And, it's been used to try to hurt me so many times that now it's like, well, if someone calls me fat, they don't have power over me anymore, because I'm okay with that word. It's not an insult to me. you're not insulting me by saying that. It's just, okay, yeah, you're stating the obvious, and what about it, so that's how I feel about it. But I think it's also important that sometimes I think plus size people can still be offended when people call us fat, or at least in my case, but it's not even about the word fat, it's the intention behind it. So it doesn't matter what you're saying, your message gets across. I understand what you're saying, and just because I don't mind the word fat normally, it's the way you're saying it and how you're trying to make me feel that offends me, if that makes sense. Like I get you're trying to say negative things about my body, and that still is gonna hurt no matter what word you use, if that makes sense. But for me, just overall, fat is just, I like to use the word because it makes me feel like I'm doing the work to accept myself more, and just learning to be happy with that and okay with it and neutral.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I feel like it totally like takes any power away from those people who are trying to like hurt you by saying it. Like, you're like, cool, do it. Like, it's just
Exactly.
a word. But yeah, I mean, I agree though. Like, it is all about like the intention, but yeah. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. It's very interesting. Yeah. Just kind of going back to like social media again, I was wondering your thoughts on what you think, if any, what you think like some of the more negative aspects of the body positive movement are today. And I'm just like thinking about that because I've seen like some TikTokers recently kind of like hijack the movement a little bit, like people who are more like able-bodied and like on the thinner side, not really like kind of taking over the space a little bit. So I don't know. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, if you have any.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of almost a thing where it's like now, oh, body positivity is a trend, which is kind of what's the word, kind of like frustrating, just because it's not a trend to us. For like us fat people or disabled people, or oppressed bodies, LGBTQ, Black, like the body positivity movement was created by Black, queer, fat people. And so the fact that sometimes now you see on social media people that really aren't any of those things are trying to now kind of take the movement as their own is it's causing the body positivity movement, the original message and the purpose of it, to lose where it's going and to lose the true intention of it. And of course everyone should be body positive, of course. Like, we're not saying you can't be body positive because you're skinny, of course we want you to have a positive like body image, but I think it just comes to like who's leading it and who is representing the body positivity movement, because it should be people that fit into those descriptors. So that is a little frustrating, and I think it causes people to get the wrong idea about the body positivity movement. Like I said, I think it's now kind of turning into, oh, body positivity, it means everyone's has a positive outlook on their body, and it's like, yes, but you also have to know kind of your place, and you have to know who it was created by and who it was created for. Because thin, able-bodied, white, straight people, they're not being oppressed. Their lives aren't affected every day by their appearance. Whereas we get oppressed a lot for our appearance. And there are people have it worse than me, and I know that. But I do know as a fat person that there are so many things that I go through on a daily basis that they don't understand. And so for them to be trying to, spread the message of body positivity and lead the movement, they just don't really know what it's about because they don't experience it. Right. So I think it just comes to the people that experience it should be leading it. But again, I want to say, of course, everyone can be body positive. And it's not that we're trying to like gatekeep, or I know that's like the trendy word of 2021. We're not trying to gatekeep, having a positive body image, but I think it just comes to leaving that space open for actual people who belong in the body positivity movement to lead it, because they know what they're doing, because they experience it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think like one of the main issues is when people that have like a huge following try to like make their like take a place in this movement. Like sometimes, just to give an example, for if we have people in the audience who like maybe don't use social media super often, like I can name an example, like how sometimes like these people who I'm talking about will post like a like before and after, where it's like before they like, it's when they're like posing, like they're like sucking in like their stomach, like trying to look really good. And then it's like the after is like the real them, and they're like, you know, not really trying. They might have like some roles, but like normally it's like they're very still generally like more on the thinner side. And so I think that just becomes harmful when there's someone using social media who like is actually like fat and like looks at it and is like, oh, this is supposed to like be for me, and I don't fit, I don't look like that at all. Then like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. I agree with that. And I just want to say, I think another like example of that is I know that sometimes, even though I think they have the right intentions, I think it's important to realize impact over intention. And I know that I've seen a couple times now on TikTok, people being like, guys, you're not fat, it's just your organs. And I'm like, but see, that's an issue right there, because why are you trying to convince people they're not fat? Like it's a bad thing, you know what I mean? It just circles back to the fat phobia. And I get they're trying to make people feel better, but you're trying to make people feel better by telling them they're not fat, because being fat is miserable. So it's just like a whole cycle. And I think that's why it's so important for the movement to be led by people that actually experience it, because you don't see the people the movement was created for doing those trends or doing those things, because they know that that's not what it's about, and that's not really helping anyone that should be a part of the movement. So yeah, that was just like another example that I've thought of. It's your uterus. I'm like, no, it's fat, and that's fine. You know, you don't try to have to convince me that all this is like organs and muscle. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, like you nailed it. I feel like with how it's like people are trying to say that like fat is something that's like negative and like should be avoided, like, you know, rather than like actually just like embracing it and loving who you are. So yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to check the time. I think we have 15 minutes left. I'm gonna check the oh wait, actually I just thought of like another thing. Like going off of like what you just said, and then maybe then we can go to the Q&A. How like, I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh no, there's like all these problems and like, what do we do? Like, you know, so how do you think like we just as like regular people can address like these issues or like help or be allies in any way?
Sure. I would say first off, like the fact that anyone's listening right now, I think that's a great start, to show that you care and you want to be a better ally to the movement if you're not a part of it. And I think that's a great first step. But I also think it just comes down to, you know, I think so many times, I think just as humans, we want to be the center of attention, and that's natural. And I mean, I relate to that as well. I think it's like normal. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think when it comes to things like this, if you know that the movement maybe wasn't created for you, then don't try to center yourself in the movement. You can still support it without making it about yourself. So just uplift those people that are actually supposed to be leading the movement, uplift them so they can get out there more, so they can get exposure, so we can get back to what the like authentic message of the body positivity movement and the purpose and the intention of it was, so we can get it back on track. And so I would just say, yeah, uplift, support, share actual fat people and their experience and their message and their advice and their thoughts and their plans for the future. I think that's the first step, and I think that'll make a huge difference. And just don't be scared to not let it be about you all the time.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think it's good to have some type of like tangible thing for people to like go off of, to feel like they can, you know, help in any way that they can. Okay. So I guess we have some questions in the chat. So, or the Q&A. So I can read some of those out if that's okay. Yeah. So someone asked, do you think there are more cons comparing to the pros of social media today comparing to 5 years back?
Ooh, do I think there's more cons?
Yeah, I guess, is there more like,
yeah,
compared to 5 years today, is there more wrong with social media than there was 5 years ago, is I think what they're trying to get at.
Ooh, it's hard, because I feel like to me, it's almost like the pros and cons equal out. Because yeah, there's so many pros, but I think the cons are very prominent. I would say maybe there's also been more good on social media in these, like, from now compared to 5 years ago, but I think overall there are more cons today than there were 5 years ago. And I think it's just social media is just gaining more and more popularity and more users. The users are getting younger and younger, and that's when we're most impressionable. And I think at least how social media is right now, there's a lot of negative things and toxic things that these kids are going to be learning and growing up with that I think will affect them in a negative way. So I think there are more cons, but I don't want that to, like, I don't want to talk all down on social media, because again, I think there are a lot of pros, and I think we can genuinely, like, pretty easily fix social media and get it back to a more, well, I don't know if it was ever that positive, but get it to a more positive place that's more about support and acceptance and inclusion and diversity and just how beautiful people are and how beautiful life is. I think we can get there, but I would say overall there's probably more cons.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for your thoughts on that.
Of course.
Someone else had a question saying, some entertainment industries and model agencies still try to influence people by displaying how perfect their skinny models and singers are. So what is your opinion about this? And I think this is really interesting for you specifically, since you're like a dancer, so maybe you can talk a little bit about like what it's like being in the industry, or your thoughts, observations.
Yeah. I will say I think it's gotten a little bit better like the past 4 or 5 years on as far as being like more inclusive and diverse. But we're still nowhere near where we should be. We could definitely be more inclusive and just accepting and diverse overall. But I think as far as my experience as a fat dancer and actress and whatever model and stuff, I think it just comes down to sometimes, like, it's almost like even though now we're getting a little bit more exposure, sometimes now it feels like we're almost just like being objectified, or we're almost just like a prop for them to use, and like, oh, we're inclusive, check.
Yeah, like
But then
tokenized,
it's like,
kind of.
yes, exactly. And then it's like you get on set and they're still like treating you bad, or they don't have your size in clothing, or like there's just so many other things to think about, and it's clear that they don't really care about your experience. They just want you so people don't attack them for not being inclusive. And I think that's kind of a problem now. And I don't know if this is really part of the question, but I just want to say it too. So sorry for the person who asked. But just, I think a lot of people ask me sometimes like, oh, where do you want to see the dance industry or entertainment, or well, actually specifically the dance industry. And I think a lot of people expect me to say like, oh, I want to see more, fat people or plus size dancers. And of course I do, because we're great. But really what my personal goal is, and this is just my opinion, is I don't want our physical bodies to be part of the discussion. I don't want my body to get me things, and I don't want things to be taken away from me or not given to me because of my body. And so I think it's just finding that middle ground of like, why does my body have to be discussed? If you're a good dancer, you're a good dancer, whether you're fat, thin, tall, short, you're good. And so why does it have to be like, oh, she's a good dancer, but she's fat, or she's a good dancer, but we already have a fat redhead, or whatever it is. Like, I just wish that our bodies weren't really part of the discussion, and it could just be a neutral thing where you hire the dancers that are the best, and you don't have to talk about their body in a positive or negative way. So I know I kind of went off that question, but yeah, it's gotten better, the industry overall, but there's still a lot of things to work on.
No, I think that's a super interesting point, because like none of those characteristics affect your dancing skills, for anyone. And so it's like, why do we care so much about like the imagery of like when like a group of people are dancing, like, if we're like watching like background dancers in a show or something, like we are looking at like their dance skills, like that's what makes me excited. Like, so it's like, why do we look at anything else? But sadly, society works like
I just
that.
want to say one last thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know I'm going on this question forever. I just want to say too, one thing I like to say is the entertainment industry should reflect what the world looks like. And the world does not look like just the same body type, the same height, the same whatever. the world doesn't look like that. Everyone is so diverse and the world is so diverse. And so think of how beautiful it would be and how kids would feel watching if they could see people on TV or see people in concerts that looked like them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think I don't get why people aren't more diverse and inclusive, because it's so much more beautiful when there's so many different kinds of people, or at least in my opinion. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that I think the entertainment industry should reflect what our world looks like. And right now, I don't think it does.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, I don't know why why more like people in the industry don't think like that, because like this isn't dance related, but if you think about like when Black Panther was released and Crazy Rich Asians, those were like kind of around the same time. And I remember those were like two big movies where it was like the first like all, you know, like Black and like Asian casts. And like it was like so popular because people could finally see themselves in these movies, and like, because they've just been like, you know, stripped of that for so long. And I mean, it still continues like so much, obviously, but it's just, I feel like many industries, including dance, but not only dance, like just do not reflect what the world looks like. Exactly. I'm just regurgitating what you said, but I completely agree. Awesome. Okay. So, we got a lot of questions. So someone asked, do you have any go-to tricks to get yourself out of a "I dislike my body today" rut?
I think for me, first I want to say that it's okay to have those days. I think a lot of the time we think like, oh, if I have a bad day, I don't love myself, or I'm not body positive, or whatever. And I think it's fine. I think it's okay to have those moments and bad days. I still have them. And if you know me at all, again, you know I'm an extremely confident and out there person, and I love my body and who I am. But I think it's natural to have ups and downs. You know, we're not going to always be on an incline. So at first I just want to say, like, don't be discouraged. But for me, I think what would help, I think just like playing music and dancing. I think that just, and not even, I'm not talking about like dance, like professional dancing. I'm just saying, even if you put on a song in your room and you're just like, woo, like just having fun and like moving your body, I think it's so powerful, and I think it can really change your mood. So I would suggest that. I think that's really powerful, and that's my advice for today.
I completely agree. As someone who's like not a dancer, like I have done that before, like if I'm feeling like low just in general, and it totally works. I totally agree.
What's your mood?
I would also say, like, I feel like, I don't know, most of us have like at least one thing that we like just unequivocally like love and have like no qualms with. And like, I feel like if you can like start to like, I don't know, maybe look at yourself and be like, well, what do I like really love, you know? And then you can like start one place and then maybe go to like another place, you know? And then, I don't know, I feel like that's also worked for me. And I've heard of that, like working for people, like kind of starting small and then like going off of that. But so thank you. Someone else asked, well, they said, you are a breath of fresh air. Thank you. How did you get so confident, and what do you do to take care of your mental and emotional health?
Great question. Well, thank you for that, for the compliment. I take it as a compliment. That's a very, I appreciate it. But how I got confident, I think it's hard to like pinpoint, you know, all the steps I took to get confident. I think, I'm not gonna lie, I think I was born with a good amount of confidence, not as confident as I am now, but I think I started with a little bit more than maybe some, and I also am lucky that I have a mom. It's kind of funny because my mom and I are kind of opposites. She's very confident in the way that like she stands up for herself, and she's very outspoken, and she's sure of her beliefs and who she is and her morals, and she will tell you if she disagrees with you and things like that, where I am not confrontational, so I'm not confident in that sense. But then I'm really confident as far as like self-love and who I am as a person, and she's not. So we kind of like inspire each other to be confident in the ways that each of us are lacking. So I think she helped me as far as being confident in like myself and being sure of myself and not being scared to like speak up and do what I need to do for me. But I think as far as like body wise, I think it just came down to I finally had to realize that this sounds bad, but no matter what you do, society will never be pleased and they will always find something to point out. If you're skinny, you don't have a big enough butt, but then if you're fat enough to have a butt, then you have a stomach, which it isn't okay. And those are just some examples. So I just kind of had to realize that like there's no point in me like killing myself to look a certain way just to please people that are never going to be pleased. So I think I just finally realized that, and I was like, you know what, Amanda, like do what makes you happy. And if other people don't like it, too bad. Like, who cares? And I think I just had to have that kind of like harsh realization. And I know it's hard because obviously we all want to be accepted by everyone and we want to be loved by everyone. And that's just not realistic, sadly. And I think I just finally realized that. But I can tell you that the love I have for myself is more than enough to overpower the people who don't like how I look. You know what I mean? Like self-love is so powerful. And I think people kind of underestimate it sometimes. They're like, oh, it's just me. And it's like, yeah, but you're all you have. You know what I mean? Like you're so important to yourself. And I think just loving yourself can go a really long way. But I would just encourage maybe overall, like don't compare yourself to other people. I think that's kind of a destroyer of confidence. And I think just as long as you're happy and you're doing what you want in life, and there's no reason to like apologize for your body, if that makes sense. I'm kind of going on a tangent now, but just don't compare yourself to other people and be sure of yourself. And as long as you're happy, you're good.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And also like when you said like, you know, don't compare yourself, like just tying that back to social media for me, like that is the hardest thing. And that is what I dislike the most as a social media user, is because it's kind of like impossible not to when you're like scrolling through seeing like people who just have like, you know, they look amazing. They're living these like seemingly incredible lives, you know, and it's just, it's hard to not be like, oh, I'm not doing that, or I don't look like that, you know? So yeah. Hopefully we can get to a point where we don't think like that. But yeah. Okay. I think maybe we have time for one more question from the chat. Oh, I like this one. Someone asked, what is going through your mind when you are dancing with Katy Perry or Lady Gaga or someone crazy like that? Because yeah, I mean, I don't even know what I would do if I just saw them on the street. So
yeah, there's kind of two parts. There's one that's like a realistic answer, and then there's one that's like I think the answer that you're looking for. The realistic answer is when I'm dancing, I'm like in my own world. I don't even know what I'm thinking. Like I'm just having fun, like expressing myself. I feel like my mind kind of almost goes blank when I'm dancing.
Yeah.
But I think the answer you're looking for is like more of like the after or before even. And it's just so, it's definitely every time I get to dance with someone like that, or just big artists or a big job or a show that I love or anything like that, any big job, it's always so surreal afterward. And I always just have like a moment where I'm like, what did I just do? Like, it's so crazy to me. And I think a lot of the time I think back to like my younger self and I'm like, what would she have to say about this? Like, he would be freaking out, you know? And I think it's just a moment where it's kind of like a self-reflection, and I have a moment to be proud of myself and to see how far I've come. And I think it also serves as like good motivation to keep going, to be like, see, Amanda, like so many people told you couldn't do it, and like look what you're doing right now. Look what you're doing. So I think it's a good confidence booster, and I think it just motivates me more to keep doing what I'm doing. And it feels surreal every time. I mean, all the artists I've been able to dance with are amazing, and I'm so like lucky. So I think it's just overall like a surreal feeling.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've also got to meet so many incredible other dancers like in the process who are, you know, also like, I feel like if they're also working with like incredible people, then they're also probably really cool. Like that's probably a big plus, get to have a big dance community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, we have only a minute left and I know you're super busy. Guys, Amanda is in the middle of shooting a music video. So, you know, she's a busy girl.
It worked just for you guys. I'm so excited.
Yes. So maybe like a quick wrap up, you know, since you are a dancer, could you maybe teach us non-dancers one like go-to like little dance move that like anyone can do with any ability?
let's do like a little mini like Dougie remix kind of thing. So all you're gonna do is your body's gonna go right, left, and then right, right.
Okay.
Ha, 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 ha. And as you do that, each time you go to each side, the other hand is gonna go swoop by your head.
Ooh.
Woo! And then double ha. And then you can do it the other way. Woo! Yeah. The classic
Okay.
one. You pull that out, people be like, oh, look at that. Oh. It's a
Yeah.
good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, I gotta try that. That's good. And that's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty exclusive one that not everyone's gonna be doing. So all right. Well, it's 5:45, so our time is up, I think. And like I said, you have to go. But thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Of course.
Lovely as usual. So yeah, and thank you everyone else in attendance for coming. I hope you learned something, and glad you got to see how amazing Amanda LaCount is. So go follow her on social media, all her socials, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Check her out. And I think you guys had merch that came out.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I have merch that came out. I'm super proud of it. It's super exciting and it means a lot to me. So if you want to check it out, my Instagram is just Amanda LaCount and it's the link in the bio, but it's really exciting. And I wanted to make it to spread love to other people as well. I think it's positive messages. So yeah, I hope you check it out. But thank you guys for listening and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
Awesome. Okay.
All right.
You,
bye. Thank you so much.